The financial markets are openly anticipating a potential sterling crisis, possibly triggered by the Labour so-called Chancellor when she speaks shortly, giving a budget that is going to be austerity Mark II, but may not be sufficiently severe and sufficiently far-reaching to head off what the some of the important financial players in the city and so on are talking about, namely the need to make major cuts in government spending to reduce a deficit, which is in a government deficit, which is enormous. And by the way, it is enormous. It is enormous. Their threat can't be countered by saying, oh no, they're exaggerating. The potential budget deficit which is emerging, as I say, from recent but continued data. It's not one piece of data. It is an endless piece of data. The growth rate falling, government revenue peaking and beginning to flag, and meeting the expectations of urgent need for increased public expenditure in a whole range of areas we are all too well aware of. So I think that the any kind of hope I know there are people in the Labour Party. I'm not in the Labour Party anymore, but I know people who are, and some good people. They think, well, you know, yes, it is pretty black and it is pretty dire, but Starmer or whoever is going to be in charge, maybe almost certainly not Starmer now, but still whoever it is going to be able to manage to turn this creaking, rather ramshackle ship of state they call the UK economy around, and somehow pick up speed, pick up economic growth somehow, somewhere, to sail us out onto the prosperous oceans that are there for us to take advantage of. If you look at the financial press, if you look at the business press, take The Economist this week, their major piece is Britain going bust? And their conclusion is, in effect, Britain is going bust faster than you think. They say the public finances, Britain's net public debts have risen from 35% of GDP in 2005, not that long ago, to 95% currently, etc. I mean, I don't want to bore people with figures, but the fact is, the British economy, we well know, has been pretty dire states for a long time. Long-term investment as a proportion of GDP has been falling. Britain is not picking up on the areas that still exist, particularly now around some of the major new technologies, the AI-related technologies. I'm not saying any of these are wonders that will bring us sort of prosperity and social justice. I'm not saying that at all, but they are the cards that you would use if you were playing a game of banking or betting on a British economic upturn, a return to faster growth, etc. So the indebtedness of the UK is not as it were, a piece of anti-socialist propaganda. It is a reality. It is a reality. And we will see the Chancellor, assuming the Chancellor remains who she currently is, because the talk around is both Starmer's seat position as Labour leader is looking distinctly dodgy, and his Chancellor of the Exchequer looks like such an obvious loser that there is talk about replacing both of them, but no sign of them replacing with anybody with a remote grasp on the scale of what is happening and the scale of what needs to change in order to address this creeping crisis of stagflation, stagnation, stag investment. I don't know I'm making up words now, but you get the general picture. It's not like 1930 31, a sudden collapse of production to like a lift going down, but it is the coordinated erosion and rotting, frankly, of many of the pillars that should be driving a modern economy in normal inverted commas times. So in these circumstances, the reform movement need only electorally speaking, uh, basically echo some of the things that the left are demanding of the Labour government, housing, various things like that. They have nothing to lose from their point of view by doing that, but uh, they know that actually the money, the reserves do not exist. The first budget of the new Chancellor will reveal some, everybody thinks, and everybody who's in the know and writes about these things, going to produce some pretty dire figures and therefore forecasts of the immediate future. Now, at what point these two currents that are at work in our politics, one, the move to the far right, the other, the the rotting of the infrastructure and the decline of the growth outlook of the British economy come together, I don't know, but I'd be amazed if they don't come together at some point over some specific but not predictable example of this crisis that suddenly will confront us. And then people will have to make up their minds. The polarization, which is on paper at the moment, could become much more real, seems to me. So, frankly, I don't have a simple uh, uh, alternative to put immediately in front of you that reverses all of these challenges. What I'm saying is we need to be speaking out now, clearly and unambiguously, with the prospects that lie ahead. Now, I know there is one argument against this, and that is that some on the left, I would say some of us on the left, I include myself, have in the past been too quick to predict a cathartic revolution on the decline, I should say, in the government's economy. There has been decline, but it's been slower and more corrosive than a sudden crisis. But I think the likelihood of that happening now and being repeated indefinitely without becoming something much more serious is less and less likely. But I do know that we need to measure our speech and our perspectives, which the facts present as deadly enough without turning it into a kind of, I don't know, kind of a circus of people predicting doom and gloom at every corner. No, I'm not saying that. I'm talking about a calculated warning, a calculated presentation of the facts soberly and open to argument. Prove them wrong. Maybe we've got something wrong, and maybe there is up their sleeve some amazing magic formula that is going to be produced and will stun us all and will actually begin the turnaround before the next general election. I don't see any sign of it, and I don't know anybody myself who sees any sign of it. Whatever their politics, and I include on that people who comment on these things from very much the centre right of the Labour Party, who are either loyal Starmerites or are people who may not like his leadership, but they share much of the Labour leader's general outlook. Those people are not predicting any significant turnaround in the crisis that we have ahead. So the question, it seems to me, is at what point will the growing assertiveness of the far right, the growing self-confidence, capacity to mobilize in the streets, which we lacked until recently evidence of, but we've now got, come together in a more immediate way? I say all of that without over-egging the cake by referring to the friendly advice that Reform are getting from some key figures in the Trump circus who are saying, yeah, win elections by all means, but in the meantime, prepare for armed struggle. Because armed struggle you may not like, but it's coming for you if you don't prepare for it. That is what came out of the speech which Trump's I haven't forgotten his name now. It's right here. Made at the big rally they had over direct from the United States. He spoke directly about the violence issue. Um, you may not want it, but it could be coming your way anyway, so you need to prepare. That's the language they use to talk about these things. So, uh, my conclusions, such as they are, is that we, and by that I mean the broadest possible definition of the fighting left, need urgently to rally and reorganize. The time is running out for that to happen. I believe the Corbyn, if you can call it the Corbyn project, the new party project, is still potentially viable, is still capable of being launched. It would be a beginning. But frankly, measured against the situation that I think we're facing over the 3 to 5 years, I don't know. It looks to be a threat that, to say the very least, not many people on the left are even thinking about sufficiently to know how to react appropriately. That won't change with a new party coming in. It depends on the policies of the new party. It depends on the seriousness with which they confront very, very difficult questions, particularly should they find themselves, because of the ups and downs of parliamentary politics, not impossible, unlikely, but not impossible, to find themselves in office, having to deal with. Can't really take this any further with any degree of conscience, confidence. I think we need articles, we need meetings, we need policy fora to discuss this, to test it. Is it an exaggeration? Is it an overstatement? Is it an oversimplification? There are some countervailing factors. This, as they say, I don't think this policy of the new hard right, reform, etc., are getting the traction they will need to control Scotland. I don't think so. And in Northern Ireland, they can forget it. So we're talking about already something which is going to have the effect of disrupting further the nature of the geographical state that we talk of as the United Kingdom, the period that we're entering. So I'm not going to pretend that there is a simple or hand-me-down set of demands that will turn everything around. I just think we have to start holding meetings and debating seriously. I mean, I think we should say we're open to debate with people who think it's not like that. The crisis isn't as bad as that. We can get along with a bit more borrowing here. We'll get to borrow in the financial markets and see our way through, or whatever. I don't think any of that is going to stand scrutiny on the scale that's needed. I mean, I'm talking about a crisis that isn't going to be resolved by a few million here or a few 100 million there. It's much bigger than that. And I think with it goes the danger that if we don't speak out on this crisis, then reform and the far right will. They'll position themselves to be the harsh but reliable counsellors of working class communities who beginning to look, some of whom are beginning to look to reform for election to municipal authorities, local councils, and even nationally. They mustn't become the champions of protest and organization against the crisis which is developing, to have the kind of monopoly of we at least spoke out the truth kind of thing.